Okay, today I'm here with girls who are all single. Keep that in mind. And they're all ranging from the ages of 20 to 30, right? Am I about right? We're going to talk today about a lot of the things that are hard and that are good with dating and being single right now. Obviously, we're all in Utah, so this might be a different demographic than the rest of the world. But I want to hear first let's start with what are some of the things that are working?
So I'm 30. I'm on the older end of this group here. And I think something that's been going well for me in dating is there's two parts to this. The first part is learning more about myself and being able to be honest with what's not working in dating with me first to start. And I know that sounds funny of like what's working, but actually going to therapy and really learning about myself and learning more about my own attachment styles and what works there. I've noticed even the type of guys that have been giving me more attention is different than before as I've been learning more about myself.
Really? Yeah. Tell me the before and after, like what kind of guys were giving you attention before and who's giving you attention now?
Well, I was a little bit emotionally unavailable but didn't realize it. In my mind, I was always blaming the guys and was like, no, they're emotionally unavailable, this. And I had a therapist just look me in the eye and was like, well, you usually attract or attracted to what you are. And I was just like, oh, so true. Okay, I'm like, I needed that humble piece of pie. And so before, I think I would attract guys that were more emotionally unavailable, or I would attach myself to guys that were emotionally unavailable and then get mad at dating and get mad at these guys. But it was like, well, I chose to stay and I chose to try to make that work. And as I have learned how to become more secure in my attachments, which has taken time. I mean, I'm 30. It's been more recent. I've even been open to this kind of learning.
Okay, this is kind of interesting because I'm going to say something controversial. Here it comes, whatever. But there's kind of a thing right now to man shame and to blame everything on men. And you took a totally different route and said, no, instead I realized it's me and this is what I need to work on. So, and that's not to say that men are not to blame, right, but that's huge that you were able to self-reflect and change. Okay, what else is working?
I have something. I've realized that the only way that I've seen even remote success with dating is being friends with the person before you go on an actual date. And so, I don't know, this is tough because it takes time, obviously, but the one thing that I've seen to work is being normal and natural friends and being in a friend group together or meeting them at multiple social gatherings and then having it turn into something more that way, generic,
Do you think
what's that
it's more
called?
Being friends, or do you think it's just getting to know someone?
Getting to know someone, yeah, because I have this weird thing that I feel goes around in Provo is that we're always oh, I like them after the first time of meeting them. And I'm like, how do you know that you like them? You don't even know them.
The Instagram.
Yeah, you like the Instagram. I'm like, that's so lit for you. But I don't know. It's just you don't even know them, you know? So how do you know if you like them? And so I feel just getting to know them naturally in a friend or casual setting before pursuing anything to know if you actually even are interested in them.
That's a good point. So I have a question about this. This is aging me so much, but Instagram was around when I was dating, but it wasn't you relied on that to find out about someone. Is that what people do? And do followers, number of followers matter? Is it that shallow and stupid?
No.
Okay, good.
But sometimes.
Okay, for sure it does. At least
Really?
Yes, when I see there's so much to perceive about a boy's Instagram, literally the fishing pics, just random stuff, but there's a lot to perceive there. But I will say I've tried to delete Instagram 7 different times. I've gone through this thing where I'm okay, I'm gonna literally just delete my account and get rid of it completely. And I actually can't because I'm
because then you can't date?
No, because then I can't date. I'm convinced Instagram is a dating app 100% because it's you can like someone's post, you can comment, you can DM them, you can follow them if you don't really know them. You can like their story.
Like the stories for sure.
If someone likes my story, we're married. Seriously. But no, seriously,
Is that like a sure sign? Like if someone
if someone likes your story, it means they're into you. Yeah.
especially if it's like a guy's, like it's like a random story and they like it.
I also
I'm like, I don't even know you.
Yeah.
Why are you liking my story?
Yeah, I also think guys maybe don't, because I do think as girls, if a guy's consistently liking your stories, it means something. But sometimes I think guys just don't see things the way that we do. So there's also that.
Some of my guy friends will like my story, but if it's a guy who just like followed me or I just know like not really that well or I've never even met in person, they like my story, I'm like, okay, you want me. Like you do. You do.
Yeah, seriously. We're married. Sorry, I don't make the rules.
Okay, we'll circle back. We'll circle back to that wasn't even what's working, but
But organic.
tell me, yeah. Tell me what's the hardest part about being single during this age? What's the hardest part?
I think maybe the culture of guys right now, because it's hard to find like men that still open your door and pay for your meal. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but the consistency of like, how many dates have I been on where a guy goes out of his way to, open your door and drive you.
Is chivalry dead then? Is
Yeah,
that what you're saying?
I don't know if it's totally dead. And I think maybe I'm just looking in the wrong places and I just haven't been comfortable with stable men. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to figure that out myself, but I just feel like maybe that has changed quite a bit, especially as like Instagram has been a thing. I went shooting the other day with this guy and he's awesome, but I had a trainer. I just got my concealed carry and anyways, so I want to learn how to use my gun. And I was talking to the guy who was instructing me and he was saying, he's like, I go to the gym and I see these dudes just taking selfies, like mirror selfies of themselves. And so people are, I mean, we're just living in a more kind of self-absorbed culture. And so it's hard when he's like, guys used to just go to the gym to be strong so they could protect their families and be healthy and stuff like that. But I feel like the shift of like, I'm doing this so that I can look good and I can do,
It's so self.
I can get women and, all these things. That's just where I feel like from observation of men, maybe that's where I feel like the disconnect has been recently.
So you want like a more traditional guy?
I'm very traditional.
Do any of you not want that? So basically, all of you guys want a traditional guy.
Men used to go to war. They just post TikTok now.
They just talk about the Roman Empire.
They just lie. They just lie, talk about the Roman Empire and go to the gym.
Do you feel like any of this, I'm not saying you guys, but is the fault of females? Because a lot of these guys, they don't want to open a door anymore because they're being told that women don't want a door open. Like, I'm 50-50, I'm a boss babe. Like,
Perceived as soft though. That's
Yeah.
They're just trying to protect their emotions because guys now I don't think they want to have their emotions on their sleeves as much because then they can get hurt. I just think people are taking less risk and I found that with my stuff. I'm a little bit more complacent in dating now because I've been around, I'm 25, but I've had enough experience where I'm just like, I've been burned so many times that it's almost not worth taking the risk with somebody who probably isn't going to treat me the way that I know that I deserve.
Oh, don't give up.
I know.
There's good guys.
There are good guys.
Do you think that there are guys out there that are feeling the same way? Like, gosh, there's no good girls anymore.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've heard guys say that.
Really?
Yeah, like really, and they're great guys. And I think that on your point there, I think sometimes if we're talking about both perspectives, like the woman's and man's perspective, I've talked with some of my guy friends and sometimes the girls don't appreciate or receive enough when they do those things. And so what I mean by that is like when a guy does open the door for you, how often are we like, thank you? Like that meant a lot because when a guy doesn't know that it meant something to you, then it feels like it could feel awkward or not received. When it's in your feminine energy, it's like, it's to receive and make it known that you appreciate.
I will say, me and Lexi always talk about this, and we actually just watched a TikTok about it. But in our culture, we have this like stigma, this thing where we like showing interest
Is embarrassing.
and like a turn off. Like someone taking you on a date and opening your door for you, and you like texting the next day and saying thank you, or like that night is like embarrassing and like shameful and scary. And like if you show too much interest, it's like, oh well, like they're scared off, or like they're turned off, and so it's that it ties back to that directly. I feel like.
Well, and I also kind of want to add how commitment plays into that, because I think that texting someone or initiating a text thread shows a sort of like commitment, like, oh, I'm into you, I'm like committed to pursuing you. And that is kind of me transitioning into, I think commitment issues is a big issue.
So, okay, Riley, I want to ask you something. Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot because you just got into a relationship. No pressure. I hope he's watching. But when you started dating this guy that you're dating, it's only been like a month and a half, I know, but like, was there something different about him or about the relationship in and of itself? Like, how do we get these other girls who want to move forward? Like, what's the difference?
Oh my goodness. I feel like there's a lot, which is very interesting because I was like in a lot of this, like the game or like the culture, like dating a lot of people like every week and like kind of just being so disappointed with like the dating culture and like, I don't know, I wasn't finding any satisfaction in that. And it just kind of like turned me off to dating for a long time where I was like, I don't even feel like I should try anymore. Like I don't have any effort to like put in to those types of dates anymore. Because I'd go on dates and like they wouldn't be chivalrous and I would just be like, oh, well, if they're not going to open my door for me, like I'm not going to give them a second date, which might be a little harsh, but like.
No, you have your standards.
Yes,
We're talking about that next, by the way.
I do have my standards and I think that's something that is really important to me. So like if that didn't happen, then I would just kind of be like, well, then they're not the one for me. But getting into this relationship and having it be like more new and stuff, I think one of the main things that I saw was just like he also put in that effort and he wanted to show me that like he was interested in me. And I think that's to go off of Lexi's point, like people don't want to show that they're interested because it's like, oh, like if she thinks that I'm interested, then like she thinks I'm gonna like want to date her and da-da-da-da-da. And then it goes into like this snowball effect of like, oh, like I don't want her to think that like I'm way into her. When in all reality, if it's like you're into someone, like that should be something that you do want to pursue, not something that you shy away from. Yeah. And I think a lot of times too, like in Provo, there's something called the game, where it's like you are kind of playing a lot of people, push and pull with a lot of people. And I think that this was just something that I found in him that like he didn't want to be in that scene, and I was at the point where I didn't want to be in that scene either. Yeah. And so like we finally were able to like get out of that and be like, okay, like this is our relationship, like how do we fit together? Like what are some qualities that we like about each other? And I think that like because we were searching for the same things and also like our standards were met on both ends, that was something that like pushed us to start dating, which I have never found in someone that like, you know, views me as like kind of like someone that he puts on a pedestal. And then I was thinking that like, I don't know, I put him on a pedestal. So like thinking that we're like so good, we're too good for each other, almost like out of each other's leagues, pushes you to like want to be better and like attracted to each other.
I love that. And you know what? I had so many things that you were just bringing to my attention right there. I'm like, oh gosh, there's so much to touch on that. Yes. First of all, standards. Let's talk about standards at all, because I mean, if you know, a lot of people have seen the Whatever podcast, which I watch it too. I think it's fascinating. But like, you hear all these girls talking all the time about like, well, this guy, he has to be like 6'4" and he has to make at least 200,000. I'm like, well, what are you bringing to the table? Like, first of all, like, so you touched on that because you're like, he saw this in me, I saw this in him. We both had the same standards. But also, I remember, I mean, it's not like I've even married that long, but like, I remember back even then, my friends being like, oh, I made out with this guy and he never called me back. I'm like, well, why'd you make out with him? Yeah. There's your answer right there. I'm not saying, I mean, I'm being a realist here, but like, let's even look at the rest of the world. Well, why did you have sex with him? You know what I mean? Like, you have to have standards. If you want a good guy who's actually going to respect you, be respectable. If you want like a guy, you know, like I hear all the time, how do we get a husband like yours? Because my husband's awesome. He really is. How do you get this God-fearing, awesome guy? Well, you have to be God-fearing. Yeah. You have to be those things too. You have to bring things to the table. You can't just be like, he has to be this, this, and this, and then sit there and wait for him. Like, you got to get out and like, be that, you know, have things to offer, and then have standards that don't change, you know? What is that like? Do people have standards anymore? Like, I mean, we're in Utah, so like it's a lot more likely to have standards, I think, than other places.
On the person, depends.
I think people have a baseline of standards, but I think people are also very willing to let those slide if they can't find someone who also meets them.
Yeah.
It's very
so it's not
easy.
Standards if they're movable, right?
Yeah.
I think like there's a lot of gray area in this like generation. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. It's very hard to find someone committed. I agree with what Lexi said. Just like the commitment level is just not the same, I feel like. Especially in like, if we're talking gospel standards, it's very like, I'll see people on a Saturday night be partying, and then like on Sunday they make it to church at 2:30 church, like they slept in kind of thing. It's just like, it's awesome they're there. I don't know. It's just like, at least for me,
sometimes in the dating game, I feel like I question my standards a lot because it's very easy to, like, I get stuck in this dating route where, like, I'll go in ways or I'll go on lots of dates, and then one date will just, like, turn me off, and I just am like, I can't do another first date where you ask me what my favorite color is, like, and I'm not gonna do it. But I think one thing that's helped me is I've written down in my notes, like, my absolute non-negotiables, and every day I look at that and, like, go into dating with, like, I also need to do that if I want to attract that, because
You attract what you are.
yeah, you attract what you are, and so that's really helped me. But there are times where I go on a couple of first dates that, like, they don't open the door, like, just do the little simple things that I really do care about. And it makes me question, like, oh, like, am I just being too picky, or am I just, like, do I have my standards too high, or whatever. Like, they can't be perfect. I know everyone's gonna have their things, so, like, I don't know. I feel like that's been the hardest thing for me, like, in dating, is just, like, trying to, like, balance having standards versus being, like, too picky and just quick to say no to everyone.
Yeah.
You know?
So what do you guys think? This is where we are going to focus in on some guys, but, like, what do you think is the problem with specifically the guys right now?
I have something to say. And this might be girl and guy, but, like, when I've talked to a lot of my guy friends, when they are, like, about to commit to a girl and they, like, back out of that, a lot of it is options. A lot of guys who have these standards have about, like, 5 to 10 girls at their fingertips, like, that I know are giving them attention, throwing themselves at them, or they have that. And then on the side, they also have online dating, and they have all of this. So when they have a girl who's, like, great, beautiful, and has, like, almost everything they want, then another girl kind of comes that might have that one piece that this girl doesn't have. Then they're like, okay, wait, this girl has that one piece. I'm going to drop this and not commit because I don't want to lose out on this. Then they move to the next girl, and then no one has everything, right? So then they move to that girl, then they're like, wait, now this other girl has a different strength. And then on top of that, there's online dating. So it's like a blessing and a curse, I think, to have so many options and so much availability at your fingertips. And, like, I see guys and my friends and different people, like, genuinely struggling with it, because I put myself in their shoes. Like, if I had 10 guys at my fingertips, you know, that were all, like, you know what I mean? It's hard. Like, it's hard to make that choice, but it's worth it, right? Like, that's how you get what you want. But that's something I've noticed.
I've noticed that too, and with that too, like, it's almost like, we always use this commonly nowadays, but, like, being overstimulated, like, stimulated, hello, the word, overstimulated, but, like, really with, like, that many options and dating apps, it's like the next best thing is the most exciting one. So it's like he won't even take the time to get to know a girl for a long amount of time before he moves on to the next one, because of course the next one's going to be more exciting than the one before, because it's new, it's shiny, it's like it's just a new,
It's where rosters
no,
come in.
seriously, like dating ADD.
That's
so
where rosters start to play.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Who's benched, who's water boy.
I have never heard that. That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
who's on a bye week. Yeah.
Who are we recruiting next week?
Yeah.
Recruitment's out.
And that's where a lot of, I think, struggle with comparison comes into, is that also, like, or, you know, a different problem of comparing yourself to one another.
Because you'll know who, like, what the other girl's name is that the guy that you're talking to is also talking to, and then you'll go look her up and be like, oh, but I don't have what you know.
But also I wanted to make a comment on kind of maybe the game, if that's okay. Because I see it from also the guy's perspective, because I have a lot of really great guy friends. And they said with this, that the second they, like, have interest in a girl, that the girl retracts. More, like, initial interest.
Is he talking about Angela? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. It's me.
So I don't know. I see both sides, because it's hard, because I do have so many awesome guy friends who I think are wonderful, wonderful, stable, could be amazing husbands. But I think that both sides, I think, we're just not working together to figure it out. We're all just
Do people want to get married? Like, I mean, I know you guys do, but do the guys want to get married?
I think they do.
You do?
I think they just aren't. Not just guys. I think girls too. I think because that happens a lot. It's not just guys who retract, and it's not just girls who retract. It happens on both sides. And I think the reason for me, like the way I've just kind of been watching it, I think the solution is is people just need to try. Like there's a difference between motivation and discipline, right? Motivation's like the desire to do something. Discipline's like the choice to actually do it.
Sure.
And so I'm like, people like have this like desire to do it, but then when the opportunity comes, they freak out about it. And it's like, just try. And I mean, yes, be aware of someone's feelings if you're gonna date them. Like don't just have a boyfriend, just have a boyfriend. Like make sure you like them and stuff, are interested, but you don't have to be in love with them to date them, to start dating them, like just try it. If it doesn't work, okay, you break up and move on. I feel like we just make it such a big deal to commit, and commitment is a big deal, but you don't have to be perfect at it to try,
That also plays with the marriage too.
Yeah.
Like your comment about like commitment is the equivalent of marriage kind of, where it's like, even I, like going into a relationship, I tend to back out because in my mind, I'm like, well, if I start dating you, then I'm gonna marry you, and then you're gonna be like, father of my kids, and just keeps going.
And then you say, just kidding, I don't know if I want you to father my kids, so I'm just gonna not date you.
Exactly. It's just, it's easier to pull out before like the commitment. Yeah, because it's scary to think about that kind of stuff.
Is it because it's the wrong person, or is it because the idea of marriage?
That's where I have a inner battle every day of my life.
Me too.
I'm serious. I literally am like, this could, because I feel like whoever's listening, I feel like I've passed up some pretty like awesome guys.
Yeah.
But like I have this inner battle of like, is this the wrong person? Like I feel like I am passing up some awesome guys, or like am I the problem? Like could I have worked out with you, or are there things that like I see in you that like aren't really quite up to my standards? Which it goes back to that battle. It's like, how do you truly know? And then you meet someone and you're like, okay, like this is what I was missing. But it's hard because it's like,
Can I ask you something personal about this? What's your parents' marriage like?
not great.
I'm only asking
Not
because,
great
like,
at all.
every time you talk, I'm like, she is me. She is so me every time you talk, because like my parents went through a nasty divorce, and then there were a couple of subsequent divorces after that. And so for me, like I look back now and through therapy and everything like that, I'm just like, oh, it wasn't necessarily like I could have married some of these other guys, but I always, pushed away because it freaked me out. Like there was nothing appealing about marriage. But I'm wondering how much of this has to do with trauma, because divorce rates are through the roof. People aren't getting married. The ones who are getting married, half of them at least, are getting divorced. And so it's like, I mean, the rest of the world would be watching this and being like, why are they talking so much about marriage? Why is that your end goal? You be you. You just, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I have to say another controversial thing, and that is that there's real joy in marriage. There is. If you are both trying and you're both, in my personal opinion, putting God first, there is so much happiness like you've never experienced before. There really is. It's just the best way of living. I lived a long time, single. I got married later, and now I've lived a long time being married, and it is just so much better if you're both working at it. But after going through trauma, and after, I remember thinking to myself like, oh, this would be great. Like I've got my nieces and nephews, and I'll just date for the rest of my life because I love it. And then I can just have just me, and I'll have these babies over here that aren't mine. And then I won't have to commit to anyone. It'll be great. And then I remember thinking like, oh, actually there is something missing in my life. Like I should probably move on. But I highly recommend counseling and really digging in deep to see like, why do I feel the way that I do? And I highly recommend marriage, and I don't care what anyone says. Okay. So I wanted to ask you, what has your experience been in dating?
I feel like some of us feel like we're all expected to be on this same timeline of getting married and having kids. And it's hard when all the rest of your friends are getting married and having kids, and you're not at that point yet. So it really took, some therapy and some like introspective thinking to kind of think outside of that and tell myself, you know what, I don't need to be on this same path. I don't need to be pressuring myself to get married at a certain point, to have kids at a certain point. I'm just trying to date to get to know someone at that deeper level, hoping it will lead into a deeper connection and marriage. But I feel like it's not necessarily the act of getting married that maybe makes people feel that pressure. It might just be the timeline and them having to do it, us feeling the pressure to do it so quickly.
And can I ask you, what's your parents' marriage like?
My parents, I want my parents' marriage. Like that is what I am looking for.
I actually knew that before you said that, because I've noticed this pattern, you guys, and there's nothing wrong with this, but everyone who their parents have a really good marriage, they feel this pressure to get married, and they see their friends getting married, and they're like, oh, when's it my turn? And then those of us whose parents did not have a good marriage, I was like, whenever I went to a wedding reception, I was like, good luck to you guys. Like, I never once felt that pressure. I never once felt like, when is it my turn? I was like, sucks to be you. Like, I'm going to be single, having fun, you know, but yes, I think there's like this inner medium that needs to, like, I don't know, if there's some way to just kind of make it so we all kind of had a healthy balance of that and knew what was right for us and when it's right for us. Because you're right, that timeline does matter. And it's not right for everyone to get married at 20, 21, 23, 25, whatever. Like, I was 28 and a half, and that was the best thing for me. That's what I needed. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know?
Okay, so this is totally on me, and I was the weird one in this. But I was getting dropped off from a blind date, and the guy was being like very courteous. This is a long time ago when I was 22, and when I was more avoidant, I guess we could say. And he was dropping me off at the door, and the door was locked. So I was like, oh no, like, the door is locked. And in my mind, for some reason, I was nervous to stand outside with him since it was a blind date. I was like, I don't want to wait out here. So I call my roommates. They're like, we won't be home for 40 more minutes. And I'm like, for some reason, it was just, I didn't want to stay out there with him. I don't know why. He was a nice guy. It had nothing to do with him. And so then I get this brilliant idea. I was like, well, there's a window on the side and the trash cans are right under the window. I can just climb up on the trash can and do a pull up into the window and get myself in. And I've never done a pull up in my life. I don't know what I was thinking. So he was like, are you sure you want to try that? And I was like, yes.
Oh, he's still watching all
the time. Yeah, he's still there.
He's like, whoa, she does not want to be
Yeah,
around.
I know. Looking back, I'm like, how dare I, you know? When you bring the guys in, one of them will probably tell this story of me. But then, so we go and he's like, I'll hold the trash cans for you while you try to get through the window. In his mind, he's probably like, what is she doing? So I open the window, I reach for the windowsill and I'm like pulling myself up and he lets go of the trash can. So now I'm falling and he catches me with my butt against the wall. And so now I'm stuck against the wall. He's like grabbing my butt and poor guy, he has to decide like, am I gonna keep holding her butt or let go for safety? And that gave me all the energy I needed to grab the windowsill. I did a pull-up. I've never done one. I did a pull-up, got in, I looked down, I wave at him, I'm like, thank you, bye. And I shut the window.
Just like that.
Yes. And I never saw him again. I don't remember his name. I don't even remember who set me up. I'm like, I should personally apologize. He's probably married by now, but like, anyway, you don't have to add this into your podcast because it's so weird. But like, honestly, there are situations where like that I've learned from.
That is... Okay, so we're not being avoided anymore. Okay, last thing.
Yeah.
What is something that guys can do better right now? Like, just hit me with it. Like, what is it that they could change right now that would make things just so much better in dating life?
I want to actually go back to your point of like why you think your marriage is so awesome and like why you are so attracted to your husband. And I think it's the same reason to why.
Which isn't weird for you because it's your uncle, but whatever, go on.
Yeah, it's my uncle. No, but I just think like the reason too that like I did start this new relationship was because of the point that you made of like you're both putting God first. And I think for me, I personally believe that like when you have that as your main goal and like that's not only your own personal priority, but that's theirs as well. And like I also believe that God has a plan for each and every single one of us. Like for you is to get married later, like maybe for other people it's to get married earlier, like whatever it is, like he definitely has a plan and like he's reserving the right people for everybody. It's just timing that always isn't what we
Timing
like.
and choices, right?
Timing and choices.
Yeah.
But as like I've seen myself like prioritize God in my life and like understand his power, I think that's when this relationship came was like I was putting everything into him and like really trying to like learn more about him and like try to, you know, emulate him in my actions. And I think that's when like I also saw my boyfriend be doing that as well. And then like it just leads to better
To
things.
good people, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for saying that. That's so true.
We all want a man that loves Jesus.
We all need a man.
No pressure. It's been a month now. I know we're in Provo, but you know. But no, you're totally right. Like, if you want a guy that does good things, be good. Like, You know, just be a better person and don't waste your time. And I'm saying this as a total hypocrite because if any of my exes are watching this, probably like, what is she even saying? Like, I never committed. I would, you know, I know exactly what you're talking about. Never committed. And I only dated guys I knew I wouldn't marry because I didn't want to get married, you know? But if you want to have a good relationship and be married and have that life, be that person and don't waste time like I did. Don't waste time with people. Like if you know it's not going to go somewhere, don't justify their actions. Oh, we can make it work. No, don't do any of that. Move on. Just move on. That's my only advice. But does anyone else have anything else they want to say that guys could do better?
I think maybe
or girls.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think both sides need to be more comfortable with rejection. Because I think that's a lot of why people are so avoidant, and myself included, is because dating is like I feel personally like nothing has hurt me more than being in relationships and then things don't work out. Like I internalize that more as a human being, and I'm at a stage of life where I'm not dating to just date. I'm dating because I want to get married and I want to have a family and you know, fulfill this feminine energy and, you know, all the good things in life. But I also think that there are guys that are putting themselves out there and that are asking on dates and they get shut down constantly or ghosted or, you know, things like that too. So I think I don't know if I have necessarily a point, but I just think at the end of the day, we all can do better. And it takes two to tango, right? A marriage is a team. But if it's starting on the wrong foot and, you know, maybe the guy's asking you on a date and you're just not responding and, you know, whether or not you're interested in him, maybe go on the date just to have experience. You know, Allison's a really good example of that because she'll you did something where you set up like, I'm going on this amount of dates and this amount of time just so that you can work on yourself and you can see from other people's perspectives. Oh, maybe I didn't think I wanted this, but I actually do want that. And then as time goes on, you have experience and you can eventually, when you find somebody that's your guy, you know, because you've had experience, you don't have regret, you know. And you also want to end on a good note with everybody. I've just heard too many stories of people that have been on dates and then they just talk trash about people they've been on dates with, which I think is really wrong.
So sad.
And so sad.
Okay, so then guys, listen up. You have all these super cute girls who are so kind and they're good. They have values. This is what I've heard. They want a guy who loves Jesus. This is what I've heard. A guy who actually has standards, a guy who opens doors. What am I missing? Anything?
Intentional.
Doesn't want to just like waste their time.
I think a guy that's willing to like look in the mirror and do the work on themselves. Yeah. Because I think girls need to do that too. Yeah. Kind of like I said at the beginning, just wrapping it up is like relationships, and I'm not married, so you can attest this to me, but they say that relationships are like someone holding a mirror up to you. It shows you where things hurt. It shows you the good, the bad, the ugly in marriage. But that's what makes marriage so incredible, is because if we think about it in like a Christ-centered way, like Christ is willing to attach to all of us and we're all imperfect. And in marriage, if the goal is to become more like Jesus Christ or live on a higher plane, we're choosing to attach ourselves to someone who's imperfect and work on that, just like Christ is. And so I just think like...
don't expect perfection.
Right. And I just think that it's important for both parties to be able to look in the mirror and be like, hey, I need help in these areas. How do I get that help? How can we both improve? And then you'll come closer together.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. And I think you guys are all, I said this before like 3 times already, I think you guys are all just such beautiful girls inside and out. And I hope some guys watch this. I hope some good guys watch this. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.